Madam Deputy Speaker, people from all over the world have travelled long distances to make Fairfield their home. Fairfield is a crucible of all that is good about multiculturalism. But we all acknowledge and celebrate the fact that Fairfield was Gadigal land long before any of us came along. I acknowledge the elders of the Gadigal clan of the Darug Nation and also pay my respects to the elders of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land on which this parliament sits. There is an ancient African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. For me, Fairfield City is my village and I am their product. To begin my story, my parents fled the civil war in Lebanon in the 1970s to start a better life in Australia. About a decade later, I was born at Fairfield Hospital. I grew up in a public housing complex with my single mother and sister in Cabramatta. As a kid, I knew nothing but diversity. My friends were first or second generation migrants from across the world. I explored many cultures, ate the best food, learned cheeky phrases in different languages, and loved exploring my neighbourhood. Cabramatta had its challenges. Drug and gang crime was rampant. People openly used heroin, even within the corridors of my apartment complex. Kids avoided playgrounds for fear of getting pricked by syringes in the sand. Robberies and theft helped purchase at next door. The most common victims of theft were the family members of those suffering from addiction. Overdoses would follow in full view of children. Drugs, crime, and violence were normalised to us kids. My friends and I adapted to keep ourselves safe and watch out for each other. From my personal experience, drug addiction truly destroyed lives. Not only for the person succumbing to addiction, but to their family and friends. It would turn an innocent young person against their loved ones. It would break our hearts. Despite these dark days, I saw the New South Wales government's impact in healing a struggling community. The Carr government, alongside our police and healthcare workers, worked side by side with the public to lift Cabramatta out of the abyss. It showed the pivotal role government plays in society, how government can change lives for the better, the power of action, the influence this parliament truly has on New South Wales. Sport was my avenue to escape the lure of crime that trapped so many other kids. Whether on a football field, cricket pitch, or at the Fairfield Cabramatta PCYC, I learnt about teamwork and overcoming hurdles, how to accept losses and be empathetic in victories. I witnessed some inspirational moments on the field, though what was truly amazing were the coaches and volunteers who gave up their time to enable us kids to play. They are the heroes of my childhood, the enablers of so many happy memories for kids who truly needed them. Sport is paramount to personal growth. It helps keep kids fit and mentally healthy, gives them purpose, and is an important outlet to have fun. Even more, sport needs to be viewed in an economic context. It teaches kids employability skills critical to addressing the youth unemployment crisis gripping Western Sydney. As such, strategic planning to coordinate sporting code structures to facilitate more grassroots level activities must occur. Volunteers are also vital in ensuring equality of access. In all, wealth should not determine a child's access to the sporting field. Education was my ticket to escape poverty. It inspired me to learn that we are not perfect, but to treat every day as a learning opportunity, to strive to be better, to help others, to be a positive force in this world. I owe a great deal to my teachers at Sacred Heart Primary School, Cabramatta, and Patrician Brothers College, Fairfield. They challenged me to dream big, to keep on chasing, to be the first in my family to go to university. So begins my adventure at Western Sydney University. UWS, as it was then known, was an important legacy from our predecessors in this very parliament who rightly advocated for a university footprint in Western Sydney. That decision gave many local kids the chance to break that academic ceiling and transition from high school to higher education. For me, it facilitated my enrolment in a combined law and economics degree. I had a strong sense of justice, given my first-hand experiences witnessing the law and order efforts in the streets of Fairfield City. I also wanted to learn more about the levers of economics that profoundly impacted lives. My mind matured at university. As kids, we avoided studying because it was not perceived as being cool. At university, that mindset completely shifted and the library became my second home. I persisted over the years to finally become a university graduate. Even more, I had the opportunity to teach at university. This was only possible because of the investment Australia made in me, to which I'm eternally grateful. It is also a testament to the structural fairness of our society in placing education at the forefront of shaping lives. Though, I admit, we still have more work to do to facilitate kids to enter tertiary studies should they wish. As Jason Clare puts it, postcodes should not determine access to education and opportunity. Professionally, I entered the workforce in my teenage years. My first job was at McDonald's Lansvale as a kitchen hand. It taught me the value of hard work and introduced me to the concept of financial literacy. Work, receive a wage, pay tax, save, and then buy things within my budgetary limits. I later learned how to factor in investments, home loans, and superannuation. We all know young people are up to the task in the labour market. They are passionate, energetic, willing to learn, and hungry for opportunities. I'll be calling on this Parliament to not only facilitate the transition of more young people into jobs, but to also inject financial literacy training programs across our state to bolster our collective economic resilience. We need to promote a culture of being proactive rather than reactive in the ever-fluctuating business cycle, enabling us to bounce back quicker and stronger when domestic and international markets falter. I joined the Army Reserves at the age of 18 and served for more than 19 years. I wanted to protect others and prevent the breakdown of society so evident across the world. As an infantry officer, I paid heavy attention to the concept of moral courage, doing what is right, irrespective of the consequences. It would guide my moral compass in all facets of my life for years to come. I had the privilege of working with some of the best soldiers in the Army, contribute to operations, and learn more about myself, especially under physical and mental adversity. We owe it to our veterans to look after them during and post their careers. As a nation, we ask a great deal from them, and they readily answer the call. They have endured the traumas of war and many other hardships. Their families also bear significant burdens derived from their service. Like many in this chamber, Veterans Affairs is very important to me, and I'll be a strong advocate in that space. After university, my strong desire to continue to protect people led me to become a federal agent in the Australian Federal Police. Attached to the Sydney office, I worked in areas tackling organised crime and corruption. I later worked in the Sydney Joint Counter-Terrorism Team, doing our bit to stop terrorist attacks on domestic soil. The people I served with are nothing short of exceptional. They go above and beyond to protect us, and I assure you, they risk their lives in the process. Policing is becoming increasingly complex with the evolving sophistication of criminal organisations alongside the public safety risks posed by violent extremism. We need to ensure we set our police up for success, to give them the legislative powers and resources to keep both them and us safe, to look after them when they succumb to the horrors they face on the job, to build and foster an agile police force capable of meeting current and future threats. To all the police and emergency services staff out there, you have our backs. With my colleagues in this chamber, I'll do my best to have yours, and in the process, make New South Wales safer. My thirst for knowledge did not stop in my early 20s. I developed the research bug and enrolled in a PhD examining business power and public policy at NSW Sydney. To me, it was truly my academic Mount Everest. It was an ultra marathon of reading, writing, rereading, and rewriting. With the help of my supervisors, I learned the value of asking the right questions, seeking the answers through a robust methodology, and reporting my results. These lessons are not only critical to academia, but to decision-making more broadly, including within this Parliament. We need to incorporate cutting-edge data collection and analysis methodologies in our public policy efforts. We need to quantify problems and be data-driven in the solutions we pursue. We need to bolster and harness our research capacity at all levels of government and promote that across academia and industry. After all, research is the gateway to progress and innovation, to a better tomorrow. I say this because New South Wales cannot pave the way for other economies to follow if we lack innovative rigour. Before entering this parliament, I was fortunate to work at KPMG Australia as a management consultant, providing change management advisory services. Most of us treat change as a bulldoze-through process. Embarking on significant reform is complex. McKinsey & Company estimate that 70% of change programs fail. We need to avoid being ad hoc, but factor the second, third, and subsequent order effects when embarking on a change agenda. And in regard to that agenda, for reasons discussed later, Fairfield needs reform. It needs a strategic vision as well as a robust change strategy to get there. This requires us to utilise the intellectual brainpower from government, the private sector, universities, think tanks, and the broader community to make meaningful change not only happen, but to also stick. I've already mentioned the impact volunteers had on my life. I sought to follow that tradition by pursuing various voluntary projects to give every kid I could the chance to chase their dreams. My main outlet to deliver this goal was through forming a voluntary group called Youth Pathways Network. For more than 9 years, we did our best to reduce pressures pertaining to youth unemployment and crime in Western Sydney. In that time, I mentored so many awesome kids determined to make a difference but lack support. These brave kids have had to overcome language barriers, digital illiteracy, the law of gangs, drug addiction, exposure to violence, the breakdown of families, financial stress, and traumatic memories from escaping the Islamic State in the Middle East. Intervention via mentorship is critical to change lives for the better here. While I'll continue to engage high school students in my new parliamentary capacity, we need to collectively organise strategies to foster mentorship pathways between high school students and representatives from industry. More broadly, we also need to harness the voluntary capacity of our respective electorates to supplement and plug gaps in our public policy efforts. It has been my experience that people want to help make our community better. We need to be that spark that transforms that intent into a reality. Overall, my life journey has been one of experiences and friendships. A genuine desire to help make lives better within Fairfield City and more broadly across the state. In being here tonight, I must make mention of how I see Fairfield and how I intend to work with you to make a difference. The electorate of Fairfield is a summation of diversity, new beginnings and hope. One of Australia's most multicultural and multi-faith communities. A community that's continuously welcomed newly arrived families from across the world, often in tragic circumstances, such as the escaping the traumas of war, persecution, and the brutality of truly evil people. And a community that has hopes for a better tomorrow, not just for themselves, but broadly across the state and nation. But to achieve that better tomorrow, we must first accept the current reality. In doing so, I refer to research conducted by the New South Wales Parliamentary Research Service, leveraging census data from 2021. I must warn you, it is not a pretty picture. Out of the 93 electorates in New South Wales, Fairfield is ranked number 1 in the following categories: lowest individual income, rental stress, unemployment, youth unemployment, lowest labour force participation rate, lowest female labour force participation rate, and persons requiring assistance with core activities. Furthermore, Fairfield is ranked number 2 in the following categories: persons not fluent in English, persons of no post-school qualification, households of nil income, and mortgage stress. On top of those rankings, Fairfield is suffering from gambling-related harm. Using data published by Liquor and Gaming New South Wales and the Australian Bureau of Statistics, I calculated that in 2022 alone, clubs and hotels in the Fairfield local government area made a net profit of approximately $651 million from gaming machines. In return, the state government received $197 million in taxation revenue. This equates to a $1,256 gambling tax for every person over the age of 20. This scale of activity is of great concern, raising questions about the extent of problem gambling, money laundering, and what we are doing to help our most vulnerable. I say with confidence that gambling has linkages with drug addiction, depression, domestic violence, physical illnesses, unemployment, and crime. The impact of gambling not only affects the individual, but also their spouse, children, and friends. Fairfield is bearing the brunt of all of these adverse effects, and despite the revenue generated, the response from government, clubs, and hotels is severely lacking. After all, we are the most socio-economically disadvantaged region in the state, and I spend every day fighting a battle to get Fairfield its fair share. It should not be that hard. I can go on with even more challenges confronted by my electorate, but the picture is quite clear. I acknowledge that the public interest is multifaceted, but I'll add that data is concrete. Government plays an important role in setting the conditions for communities to thrive. The people of New South Wales look to every single one of us in this chamber for leadership and to do what is right. In this context, if we are serious about making New South Wales better for all and truly pursue the public interest, then we must turn our attention to Fairfield. And that means we must accept that structural reform is needed and to ignite that change now. I do not call for this action on the basis of some pipe dream, but as a critical economic growth strategy for the state. Fairfield's competitive advantage is its untapped potential, its people, its geographical position, its ability to expand. While other CBDs have had their stories written, Fairfield has barely had pen to paper. Its capacity for growth far surpasses other areas in New South Wales. We have the opportunity to transform Fairfield to become the powerhouse of Western Sydney, an engine of growth for the state, an exemplar for transforming underdeveloped cities for the better. Now, it is one thing to throw around problems. It is another to talk about solutions. The roadmap to this better Fairfield is not an abstract concept, but a realistic and reasonable 9-step plan tailored towards the very problems confronted by the electorate. This includes the following actions. 1. To progress the Minns government's committed upgrade of Fairfield Hospital to ensure the needs of not only Fairfield, but Cabramatta, Prospect and Badgerys Creek are met. I do caveat this point by saying that constructing hospital buildings is meaningless without populating those rooms with doctors, nurses and critical healthcare workers. This requires coordination with the federal government, medical bodies and tertiary education providers to lift the cap on university places to train more healthcare workers to meet healthcare demand. We also need to strategically recruit and train more multilingual doctors and nurses from Western Sydney to cater for our culturally and linguistically diverse population. I say this because breaking down communication barriers is critical for accurate medical diagnosis. This is a must, as it will save lives. 2, to implement measures to reinvigorate the Fairfield CBD and surrounding commercial hubs to stimulate aggregate demand and job creation. This can only be done through leveraging a whole-of-government approach, working with local and federal governments to identify, develop and fund key infrastructure projects to encourage private investment and capital formation. We need to set the economic conditions for businesses to flourish, filtering all the way through to the labour market and then helping family quality of life. 3, to bolster Fairfield schools to ensure teachers and support staff get the resources they need to set our kids up for success and facilitate transition pathways to tertiary study, apprenticeships, traineeships and other employment. We also need to develop and execute financial literacy training programs across Fairfield so that we can reduce the inequality gap between Fairfield and the rest of the state. 4, to enhance measures for newly arrived families to settle into our community, to develop their language skills, to make them competitive in the Australian labour market, to give them access to opportunities, to give them a chance of living their best life. This includes mapping... This includes mapping existing economic and social programs delivered by all government and non-government entities to identify and plug gaps in service delivery. 5, to relocate essential government services to Fairfield. This must include establishing a Services New South Wales branch within the electorate. 6, to stimulate measures pertaining to affordable housing, inclusive of addressing public housing supply constraints across the electorate. According to data published on the Department of Communities and Justice website, I calculated that as at 30th of June 2022, the number of applicants on the general waiting list for public housing in the Fairfield allocation zone was 3,641, the highest in New South Wales. The state average was 209. That is 17.4 times the state average. What makes matters worse, the New South Wales Parliamentary Research Service and census data I mentioned previously suggests that from 2016 to 2021, public housing dwellings in Fairfield declined by approximately 10%, whilst our population grew by 8%. We need to correct this imbalance as a matter of priority. 7, to ensure we do what we can to facilitate disability access within Fairfield. This includes the provision of lifts at Carramar, Villawood and Eunora train stations. It surprises me that we still have train stations in 2023 without lifts to facilitate access for those that need them. And in justifying the business case regarding these lifts, these are suburbs that are commercially and residentially underdeveloped, situated on key train lines and geographically placed between key CBDs across Sydney. In other words, they are prime examples of suburbs we need to develop if we are to reach our population and economic growth goals. 8, to create more open spaces and parks to promote health, fitness and positive wellbeing outcomes. This includes enhancing the ability of local sport providers to involve more kids in sport. 9, to boost government and non-government infrastructure to help our most vulnerable members in Fairfield. Those who are homeless, those experiencing trauma, those who need our help. This includes the funding of the research and implementation of gambling harm reduction measures, inclusive of initiatives to help not only gamblers, but their families. In totality, these 9 measures are not ambitious. They are core public goods and services required by any electorate. I must add that the Premier and ministers of this government have been supportive of hearing my concerns and genuinely attentive in wanting to secure positive outcomes. Thank you. I'm also well aware that other electorates are also in dire need of support and that the scarcity of resources mean prioritisation must occur. I'll work with all of you to ensure that no electorate is left behind. It is on that note that I address the importance of the media in propelling a public policy agenda that Fairfield and New South Wales need. This is very much a partnership. New South Wales has been shaped by the reporting you do, the power of your words and its ability to spark the most defining moments in this state's history. You are very much a part of this journey, the people's eyes, ears and voice. I look forward to being held to account, to work with you to make a difference, to galvanise the public to achieve outcomes, and to truly show that politics should transcend beyond the chasing of votes, but rather be directed to the pursuit of the public interest, to serve the electorate, to do right by them, to improve lives. After all, where you come from or how you vote should not determine whether this Parliament has your back or not. To members of the public, both within and outside of Fairfield, we're at our strongest when we work together. I know we share the same vision for a better future for all. I promise I stand here tonight to do just that. Electoral outcomes give mandates. It is the expression of your will, the very definition of democracy. This Parliament cannot help make lives better without you. In terms of expressing my thanks and gratitude for being here tonight, my life is based on others investing in me. I've done my best to personally reach out to as many people as possible to let them know their impact on my life. My family, friends, neighbours, academic supervisors, teachers, sporting coaches, work colleagues and students have truly made a difference. You mean a great deal to me, and I'll do my utmost best not to let you down. Special mention to my mum. Thank you very much for being there every step of the way. Sincerely, I don't say it enough, but I seriously love you, and thank you too, Paulina. As a side point, I did offer Mum to go out to the movies last week and she turned me back, so I'll take you out next week. Hopefully you say yes this time. I won't say what the movie was. Politically, I thank the New South Wales Labor Party for their endorsement. I joined the party 20 years ago at the age of 18, and what a roller coaster ride it has been. It has matured me as a person and reinforced a sense of duty I owe in serving the electorate. One of the most important roles of a Member of Parliament is to foster sustainability through mentoring tomorrow's political leaders. I need to acknowledge a parliamentarian in Fairfield City who truly cared and did just that. Chris Bowen has been a source of advice to many young political aspirants. He saw it as an obligation to ensure the future viability of our city. Thank you, Chris. I'll do my absolute best to not let Fairfield down and mentor the next generation of leaders so that our city gets the political representation they deserve. I also thank the Premier of this state, Chris Minns. Thank you for your confidence in having me as part of your team. I'm proud to be here and very excited to work with you and everyone else to achieve positive public policy outcomes. Thank you. He deserves it. He deserves it. In terms of the Fairfield campaign, I need to acknowledge the Fairfield Labor volunteer campaign team led by Raf and Noor. There are too many other people to acknowledge, but you all know who you are. Thank you for being there for me and your dedication in serving the people of Fairfield. To all my colleagues here in Parliament, both elected and supporting staff, thank you for welcoming me here. I have truly been impressed by the calibre in both chambers and in all sides of politics. I look forward to forging strong friendships and working with you to do good things, and I sincerely do mean that. To the bureaucracy at all levels of government, local, state and federal, to non-government entities and businesses and other invested stakeholders, I will take this opportunity to thank you for your contributions to Fairfield and New South Wales. If I have not already, I'll be knocking on your door shortly to collaborate on that better tomorrow. To the people of Fairfield, thank you for selecting me as your representative here in Parliament. I'm a firm believer that trust is hard to earn and easy to lose. I'll do everything I can to earn and keep your trust. In closing, I see my time in this Parliament as a chapter in the book that is Fairfield. Working with the people of this great state, my job is to transform the idea that we can make Fairfield and in turn New South Wales better into a reality. And that starts now. Thank you.